college football
Woo!
is officially in playoff season. We are right around the corner from college football playoff rankings. They come out tonight.
Oh, yeah.
So in the meantime, we're going to talk about the AP poll.
Oh, yeah.
The AP poll
The only
just got
one we have our
updated.
hands
A
on.
lot of shakeups because there was 5 ranked teams that lost last week.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, Clemson was one of them. We're going to put a whole nother video on Clemson coming out later today. So if you're watching this,
lot
good
to
luck.
say.
It's not right as
Good
it's posted. It's probably already out. And the rankings come out tonight, the official ones. So we're going to give you another recap video tomorrow morning on what we think of the college football playoff rankings. But for now, AP poll. I'm going to read off the top 10 as I always do, and we can kind of open it up and go from there. Number 1, Oregon, no change there. 2, Georgia. 3, Ohio State. 4, Miami. 5, Texas, back in the top 5.
Good
Penn
bye week.
State dropped from 3 to 6. Tennessee 7. Indiana 8.
Hoosiers!
Shout out Indiana. BYU stays at 9, and Notre Dame rounds out the top 10. Bama's right there at 11. So I guess we can just open this up.
Jeez.
Ryan, what are you thinking about these rankings? How do you like the top 10 as it's shaping up for the rest of the year? And do you think that the CFP poll is going to be significantly different than this?
Oh, I love these rankings. I think they pretty much nailed it. I don't see any problems with the entire rankings. There's a little things that can go here and there, like
Clemson
maybe.
being ranked.
Yeah, I mean, I still think you guys are a very talented team, even though you have 2 losses. There's a lot of like 2-loss teams that still on this board that people like a lot.
true.
So I think that I had no problem with any of these rankings, really. I just think that it's very interesting that Bama's the only team right there waiting, like the only locked in 2-loss SEC team that has a chance. Like I know Missouri was like 14 out, Ole Miss out. So it's like interesting to see Bama right there. But yeah, I have no problem with these. I think Miami's going to, after Clemson lost, they have to be a top 4 team for even this AP and college football just to make sure they're locked in. And then nothing BYU, Indiana, that I loved it. I think there's nothing wrong. The only thing I think Notre Dame is just, if they keep playing in no conference, I think it's complete bullshit. I think they need to find a conference.
They're never going to.
I think that's so ridiculous that every other
They
team.
make too much money doing that. Mario,
Yeah.
when you look at LSU at 14 and you see Bama at 11,
Striking distance.
I was gonna say, does this
Yeah.
give you confidence? I mean, they got the two loss teams, both inside the top 15. You guys play each other this week in Death Valley.
Yep.
I know we're gonna cover that in the CFB episode, but this kind of looks like the winner of that game is gonna be in. If
Yep.
you're going off the AP poll rankings, obviously college
Yeah.
football playoff rankings haven't come out yet.
Yeah, off these rankings, first off, I want to say I kind of agree with Ryan. I like the placement of a lot of these teams. I do. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah,
Appreciate
here for
that.
you, bud.
I get why Notre Dame's at 10. I don't think they're that good, but I understand why they're there. But yeah, Alabama at 11. I really like that because I think we're going to beat them this week. And
Think so.
if
too.
we do that, then it looks like we'll be hopefully at that number 12 spot.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I think my only issue with this is exactly what Mario just said with Notre Dame. I personally just don't understand how, first of all, they're above Bama, number 1, who lost to an SEC team while they lost to Northern Illinois. But more so, I don't understand why Boise State, who's undefeated, they're not
They've one
undefeated,
loss.
but
One
they
loss.
lost to the number 1 team in the nation.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how they're not above a team that lost to, Notre Dame and Northern Illinois and then Alabama and Arkansas, right?
Vanderbilt.
Or Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt,
Sorry. Yeah.
Who's ranked?
It's because who they beat.
I was gonna say,
Boise
yeah.
doesn't beat anyone.
Boise State.
Notre Dame beat the 15th best team in the country. Bama beat the 2nd best team in the country.
Yeah.
It's like
Those
kind
wins
of.
carry
Okay.
a lot.
It's
Yeah,
just
that
kinda
makes sense,
tough.
I guess. That
Also,
makes
Boise
sense.
State beat one ranked team now. Didn't they beat? Yeah, they beat Washington State by 20, which is starting to look like a really good win.
That's crazy. That's a weird. Washington State at 20 is crazy.
Yeah, I
They're
was
not a
gonna
good
say-
football team.
They score a lot.
Yeah,
That's
they
it.
score,
They
but
score a lot.
that actually helps Boise State a lot. Washington State being very much, in the-
Relevant.
Yeah.
in the top 25, solidly in the top 25 now, and their only loss coming to the 1 seed. That's kind of solidified the 1 seed until the Big Ten championship now.
Dude, how happy was the committee with the Iowa State loss?
Oh, they
In my
loved it.
opinion, they
Oh,
were licking their
loved
chops.
it.
They're like, drop, gone. We'll leave you around just
Well,
in case you
you
went
know
out.
who the happiest team was about the Iowa State loss?
Colorado.
Colorado.
By
Yeah.
a mile.
100% Colorado. I mean, Colorado is very, very, very much in striking range now of the Big 12 championship.
Is there any chance it's not BYU Colorado for that Big 12
It
championship?
just depends on what
I mean,
happens.
literally,
it
I mean,
has to-
everyone
Colorado
plays each
goes
other.
into Texas Tech this week. It's a 3-point spread. I know we're talking about that on Thursday.
Okay.
A lot of the Big 12 games are really close spreads going forward, but for the Big 12 championship odds, if you pull them up, it's BYU, Iowa State, and Colorado are all plus 300 or closer, and then the next highest is Kansas State, which is like plus 850. So it's a 3-team race pretty much for the Big 12 championship. And this opened the door wide open for Colorado. So, ESPN was licking their chops at that.
Yeah.
Not just for the polling purposes,
Yeah.
but for this entire, Big 12 race.
Mike
here.
might have to get a jersey.
despise
You
it.
might have to get a
Despise
jersey.
it.
What was the bet if they make the
Uh-oh.
playoffs?
Yeah.
If they make plus, he has to get a Shador
George
jersey
Sanders, yeah.
and wear it
On the pod?
Yeah.
You got to bring the watch.
Shador!
Give the Shador. Yeah, my thoughts on this. Very happy with what they did with Indiana. I like Indiana at 8, jumping BYU, and I actually like BYU at 9. I think at this point in the season, if you remain undefeated, heading into week 11, it's at the point where, it doesn't really matter who you play. If you're undefeated in the Power 4
Yeah, haven't
conference,
lost,
you
yeah.
should be respected enough to be in the top 10.
Completely agree.
SMU at 13 is pretty powerful there because they beat the absolute brakes off of Pitt.
Yeah,
I was
huge.
very wrong on SMU, and I don't know how wrong I was on Pitt. I think Pitt's very good, but I think they had a really bad game.
Yeah,
I
they
also
could've
think
just
they
had-
played really well against Syracuse, but clearly a gap between those teams. SMU is, a force to be reckoned with, and so this puts them in perfectly. Honestly, it'll depend how they play Miami. I think there's a world where a 2-loss ACC SMU team, if they lose to
100%.
undefeated Miami, gets in the playoffs.
Their only
now.
losses
Yeah.
is
Oh, yeah.
third probably ranked Miami and BYU if they went out.
That's what
sixth,
I'm saying.
fifth ranked BYU.
Undefeated BYU if they win the Big 12, and then undefeated Miami if they win the ACC.
Yeah, I think this is
so
a lock.
2-loss SMU is very much in the mix here. One thing I thought was kind of interesting, keeping A&M at 15. That feels a little high for a
Way too-
2-loss
yeah.
A&M.
I think it's too high too.
Like 2-loss A&M, they didn't look great last week at all.
Nope.
And they lost to week 1 Notre Dame, which I know, Notre Dame still held up their high, but
Losing to South Carolina is
I
really
think-
bad. That's
I
really
know it's a
bad.
weird spot for me. Like, do I think Ole Miss is better than A&M? Probably.
Yep.
Ole Miss looked fantastic last week. Obviously, Ole Miss has a fucking uphill battle this week with Georgia. I mean, it's less than a field goal spread.
Yeah.
So we'll see again. Everything kind of works itself out in this SEC with A&M playing Texas. But just the positioning there I thought was a little interesting. And also, last note, Army at 18. If Army goes and beats Notre Dame and then beats Navy, I know Navy's fallen off an absolute cliff.
Yeah.
Have,
Yeah.
and terrible. But an undefeated Army would be up against Boise State. I feel like there's a shot both of them can get in the playoffs because they pick the best. The CFP committee picks the best, non-group of 4 team. So an undefeated Army with a win over Notre Dame. Granted, they have to beat Notre Dame. We saw what happened when Navy played Notre Dame, but that's a better win than Boise State's had by far.
Yeah.
And they'd be undefeated. I feel like there's a world you can get Army in as that solidified, guaranteed spot for the non-Power 4 teams, but Boise State actually get in as an at-large bid. So you could see 2 non-Power 4
Yeah.
teams. That was the one thing I thought was interesting.
Depends on how
moving
the SEC and Big
this
Ten
much.
run out.
Yeah.
Like I think they'll run itself out. These 2-3 loss teams will be gone, probably.
An undefeated Army that beat Notre Dame, that's a top 10 team, would be crazy to leave out.
Yeah,
I don't think they would.
agree. I agree with that.
And Boise
But the-
State, with their only loss with a Heisman,
Is the
top 5
number
in the
one
Heisman
team
is the
in the
number 1
nation.
team by 3 points. That's also kind of crazy to leave out. It'll be interesting to see. I guess we'll find out a lot more tonight when the rankings come out. But it'll be interesting to see how they value these 2 teams compared to each other, because compared to like the 2-loss SEC teams as well. Like if you have a 2-loss Ole Miss versus an undefeated Army or a 1-loss Boise State, who are you putting in the playoffs? Ole Miss probably better than both those teams,
You gotta put in
skill wise,
Army, yeah.
but you got to put them in.
It's like the Texas A&M. I think they're keeping them there because it's just Texas. If you beat, they just keep them at 15 and they beat Texas, they're gonna get in.
It's a placeholder.
It's pretty
for the
much a
end of the game.
placeholder. Like
Yeah,
if you beat
I
Texas,
see that.
Texas goes to probably stays at 5.
If they
no
beat
worse.
Texas, Texas isn't in the SEC championship game. All of a sudden, Texas has 2 losses,
Yeah, we're
there
fighting
may be an
between
at-large bid.
Bama,
Texas-
LSU.
and the Army and Boise State.
And-
for
yeah.
whoever-
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
that. So it's kind of like a placeholder because it kind of be, in my opinion, it could be a switch. Whoever wins that game, and then whoever loses out.
Yeah, if Texas is out after this season, I mean,
That would be insane.
that
would
would,
suck.
no, it would
be
hurt.
nuts.
That would
It-
suck real
yeah,
bad.
That would be
That-
absolutely
yeah,
nuts.
let's not think
That might
about
be
it.
the biggest choke, but there's just no way.
It'd be the greatest
they'd be-
show in
Ri-
DGen history.
I mean, yeah, you guys would literally just murder me. But
No, we want to hear
yeah,
explanations.
quickly,
but-
historically, how accurate or how similar is the last AP poll before
well, we've never
college
known.
football?
We know,
Wait,
it's
you mean
been so
the-
easy
You mean
for them.
like the first week of the college football playoff rankings compared to this AP
Yeah, like
poll,
how
or the
his-
final AP poll with the final playoff rankings?
No. The first with The current.
They're
like,
usually
is it historically
so they're
pretty
usually
the same?
kind
or-
of. This is
also hard
usually
to
the
say.
most different they are. There doesn't mean they have to be a lot different, but typically, the AP poll kind of
mirrors.
mirror when you get closer to the end of the season, it becomes a lot clearer. Right now, CFP has done their own rankings for 11 weeks without sharing them. This is strictly like AP going off AP preseason rankings. So it's very possible, I think Oregon will stay one no matter what, but it's very possible they think Miami, as an undefeated Miami, is
It's
ahead of
two.
Georgia or Ohio
Also,
State.
Yeah.
like Indiana's better than Penn State. Indiana's better than
Totally.
Texas. And
Like I wouldn't be surprised to see Indiana.
Also,
ahead of Penn State either.
they've never had to factor in the next 8 teams. So I think the college football poll is going to be a lot more
Yeah.
different, like a
That's
lot
always
shaken
just
up.
been
I think it
That's
will
It
very
be.
used to be
true.
more mirror. I think this year is going to be like, we're putting our order because it's 12 teams you have to lock in instead of 4,
Yeah.
which didn't really matter.
Right.
You only had to worry about 3 through 6.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But we'll see.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, they kind of chalked it up after the end.
It was
like
just-
after
Yeah,
you got
exactly.
the first 4, they're like, okay, who cares?
Like they
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
it didn't matter at all.
But yeah, they really have to dive into these. So I'm really excited tonight to see what it comes out. We are going to be doing an emergency episode releasing tomorrow morning on college football playoff rankings reactions. So make sure to drop into that. But let us know in the comments what you think. Who should be, number 1, number 2, number 3 overall in the playoff rankings, and if we messed anything up on this poll reaction.
Oh, yeah.
Excited to see what the rankings are. This is gonna be
It's gonna be
in
lit.
for a good
No, it's
couple
gonna be
months
lit.
of college football, boys.
Hook 'em horns, baby.
We'll see you later.
Go Buckeyes!